My mother left me a list of 9 people I was never allowed to let into the house. She gave it to me 8 months before she died, when she still had most of her mind, which is a detail I need you to hold on to, because everyone I've told this to wants it to be the other thing. They want her to have been confused. She wasn't confused. She was the least confused I ever saw her the day she gave me that list. She'd been slipping for a while by then. Little things. She'd call me by my aunt's name. She'd put the kettle in the fridge. The doctor used the word early, and then a lot of gentle words after it, and we all did the thing families do where you start speaking about a person in a slightly lowered voice while they're still in the room. So when she sat me down at her kitchen table and slid a folded sheet of lined paper across it, I braced myself for something sad. A confession, maybe. Money, worries. The location of a will. It was a list of names, 9 of them, handwritten, one under the other. I didn't recognize a single one. I read them twice, and I looked up, and she was watching me with an expression I had genuinely never seen on her face before, which was patience. My mother was not a patient woman. But she sat there and let me read them again, and then she said, when someone with one of those names comes to the door, you do not let them in. You don't open it. You don't speak through it. You go to another room and you wait until they've gone. I said, Mom, who are these people? And she said, it doesn't matter who they are. It matters that you know the names. I asked her if they'd hurt her. I asked if it was to do with Dad, who left when I was small, and about whom she never spoke. I asked if I should be worried, if we should call somebody, and she reached across and put her hand flat on top of mine, which she also never did, and she said, you're not in any danger. Neither was I. You take the strange thing your dying mother hands you, and you tell yourself you'll understand it later, and you fold it up and you put it somewhere. And mine went into the drawer in the hall table by the front door. As long as the door stays shut, nobody in this family has ever come to any harm. Has ever, she said. Not will. I didn't hear it at the time. I've heard it 1,000 times since. I took the list because you take the list. Underneath the takeaway menus, and the spare key, and the little tin of screws that every hallway drawer contains. She died in the March. I inherited the house, which had been her house and her mother's house before that, a tall, narrow terrace that I'd grown up in and never expected to live in again. My husband and I moved in that summer because the mortgage math made sense and because I couldn't bear to sell it. And in the ordinary chaos of moving, I forgot about the list completely. It stayed in the drawer. I want to be clear about that. For almost 3 years, I did not think about those 9 names once. Now I have to tell you about the letterbox because it's small and it matters. The front door of that house has an old brass letterbox, the kind with a stiff sprung flap, and it's loud. When the post comes through, the whole hall hears it. My mother hated it. I remember that from childhood, the way she'd flinch when it snapped, and I remember, and I only remember this now, the way she would go and stand in the hall after the post and look at the door for a moment before she picked anything up. As a child, you don't question the shape of your own mother. She stands in the hall. That's just a thing she does. The knock came on a Tuesday in November at about 9 in the evening. Not the letterbox, a knock. 3, evenly spaced, unhurried. My husband was away that week, which I've since decided I'm grateful for, though I couldn't tell you exactly why. I went to the door and I did the thing you do, which is, I called out, "Who is it?" through the glass. My hand was on the latch, and I was already arranging my face into the polite, sorry for your loss expression you wear for your mother's old friends. And the name went past me, and then it came back, the way a word does when you've read it somewhere. And a man's voice, perfectly pleasant, perfectly ordinary, said a name. He said, "It's Peter Reed. I used to know your mother. I had my hand on the latch. I want you to understand how close it was." And I stood there with my hand on the metal and I thought, I know that name. I knew it from the drawer. I didn't open the door. I'd love to tell you it was courage. It wasn't. It was that my body simply stopped, the way you stop at the top of the stairs when you've miscounted them in the dark. And in that stopped moment I said, through the door, I said, "It's a bit late. Could you come back tomorrow?" And there was a pause, a long one. And then the same pleasant voice said, "Of course." And then it said, "You sound just like her." And I heard him go down the steps. I got the list out of the drawer with my hands shaking. And there it was, number 4, in my mother's careful handwriting. Peter Reed. That's the moment most people expect the story to end. Woman finds spooky list, spooky name knocks, roll credits. But that's not the part that changed me. The part that changed me was what I noticed when I actually looked at the list, properly, under the hall light, for the first time in 3 years. The names weren't written all at once. I don't know how I hadn't seen it. The ink was different down the page. The first 2 names at the top were in a faded blue, an old pen. The letters formed the careful way my mother wrote when she was younger, before the arthritis. Further down, the ink got darker, newer, the handwriting got looser. The last name on the list, number 9, was in the shaky, oversized hand of the woman who'd put a kettle in the fridge. She hadn't written me a list. She'd shown me a ledger. 9 names, added one at a time, across the whole length of her life. Peter Reed was number 4. Which meant 3 had come before him, long ago, when she was young. And it meant 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 had come after, and she'd opened the door to none of them, and she'd written each one down, in order as it arrived. I sat on the stairs for a long time with that piece of paper, and then I did the thing you're not supposed to do, which is I started trying to find them. Peter Reed, the others. I sat up half the night with my phone, and here is what I found, and I've checked it more times than is healthy. Nothing. Not a death record, not an old address, not a photograph, not a single trace of any of the 9 names anywhere I could reach, which is impossible. 9 people leave 9 footprints. These left none, except one. The first name on the list, top of the page, the oldest ink, I found that one eventually in a place I wasn't looking. It was in my great-grandmother's handwriting, in the front of a family Bible, in a box in the loft, on a page where the women of my family had for some reason written down the dates that mattered to them. And next to that first name, in my great-grandmother's hand, was a date. It was 91 years ago. I need to be careful here, because this is where I lose people, and I don't blame them. I am not telling you that a man who knocked on doors 91 years ago knocked on mine. I don't know what I'm telling you. I'm telling you what's written down, and what's written down is that the first name on my mother's list was known to my great-grandmother, and the 4th name on my mother's list stood on my step 3 years ago and told me I sounded just like her. He came back, by the way. Not the next day, like he said, but he came back, twice more, that winter. Same 3 knocks, same unhurried voice, always in the evening, always a name I'd find on the list when I checked, and I did check, every time. My heart going, standing in the hall the exact way my mother used to stand in the hall, and now I know what she was doing. She was making sure. She was reading the door. I never opened it. I want that on the record. Whatever this is, I did what she told me, and my husband thinks the knocking is kids, and I let him think it, because the alternative is a conversation I can't win. Here is the part I've never said out loud. The list has 9 names, and there is a 10th line. It's blank. But it's there, indented and waiting, the way the others are, because my mother ruled faint lines down that page before she wrote a single name, enough lines for far more than 9, and I used to think that was just how the paper came. It isn't. She drew those lines. She made room. She was keeping the ledger for whoever came next, and whoever comes next keeps it for the one after. That's the inheritance, not the house, the list. I know one more thing, and then I'll stop, because it's the thing that keeps me up. The names are in order. And they don't repeat. 91 years, and he's never used the same name twice, and my mother met 4 of them, and I've now met 3, and I have 5 names left on that page that I have never heard a voice give me. Which means 5 of them are still to come. I'll get through Peter Reed's lot, numbers 5, 6, 7. I'll stand in the hall and read the door, and I won't open it, because that's the whole of the job. That's the entire secret my family has kept for a century. You don't fight it, you don't understand it. You just don't let it in, and you write down the name, and you leave the lines for the next one. But I've done the arithmetic. My mother made it to name 9. She was old when the last one came, and I'm not old. I'm 41, and there are 5 names still to come, and I've started to wonder, on the bad nights, What happens to the family that finally reaches the bottom of the page? I keep the list in the drawer by the door, under the menus and the spare key and the little tin of screws. There's a pen in there now, too. I put it there myself.